Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Hey everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another Tall and Short of It podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. Good episode today for you. We've got some CSGO, Formula One, League of Legends, Magic the Gathering. We're going to be hitting everything along the way and in between. Justin, good to see you. How are you? How you feeling?
That sounded so robotic, almost as though you don't care. Good to see you too, man. I'm doing pretty well. No, we do.
Brutal.
We got a lot to talk about this week. Here, let me say this first, because every week we say comment, every week we say reach out on Twitter, and I know some of you fuckers, right? We talk about the flavor of the week, we talk about the rose, thorn, and seed. Reach out on Spotify. You can put comments on the YouTube. Tell us what your flavor of the week is. Because then we may get some good recs, then we can talk about your thing, and then you can feel, like you're a part of the show. So that's just something that I've been thinking about over the week, but wanted to lay that out at the top of the show. Good to see you, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'll start us off with my rose, thorn, and seed, but to start off for my rose, it's mostly about this past week, but going to Nashville for Colleen's cousin's wedding was a really fun trip and everything. So that is my rose. It was a really cool city. Like we got there around 9 a.m. It started off pretty weird. We got to the airport around like 4 a.m. to fly out, get into Nashville. Our first Lyft driver just like cancels on us. Like they dropped someone off at the airport, had picked up our ride, and then they just like dipped out. And we're like, so no. But because of that, we ended up getting this Lyft driver, Joni. So she probably will never hear this, but Joni is dope. She is one of the original 20 Lyft drivers when they first started the company and everything. She picked it up. She's had, she said she had done over 23,000 Lyft trips and had driven millions of miles for Lyft. She had a picture of her ringing the bell at NASDAQ when Lyft went public. She got to ring the bell. Nice. And with all those trips, perfect 5-star rating. Her car was immaculate. Like it was really a good start. And then she whips out a 3-page like stapled together thing of recommendations for food and places to check out in Nashville. And just was like, here, take this with you. I have them all broken down by price, what kind of food they are, or like what the different places are. She had it broken down into location with a map that had all of the different areas of Nashville labeled with numbers. Wow. Like, this lady was killing it. So I just had to shout out Joni. But just throughout... go ahead.
Can you tip on Lyft? Like, did you...
I did. I threw her...
send her the blowjob level of tips? Because that sounds like the VIP of Lyft service.
Well, I don't normally tip on ride apps and everything, but I did throw her the 20% on it just because I'm like, hey, I really appreciated her going above and beyond. And to the point, she even gave me her like business card from before Lyft was a thing that she used to drive people to the airport occasionally. That she was like, hey, where the wedding is at, where we ended up staying on Saturday for the wedding, is about 40 minutes outside Nashville. She's like, you're going to have a tough time getting Uber or Lyft over there. Here's my card. if you run into a snag getting back to the airport, just text me, and if I'm available, I'll come scoop you up. You can pay me on Venmo. Like, it was one of like it was easily the best like Lyft, Uber driver that I've ever met in my life. So that's going to be like a part of the trip that just kind of sticks, even though it was just like the start of it. And also,
well, I think you more than anybody should know, like when you're shown really, really personal or what feels very personal, hospitality, that is like, it's like a warm shower or a hot towel, man. It's just like the best feeling ever.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. Shout out to the OG Lyft driver. That is so cool. Yo, and so she gave you like her personal contact and was like, "Hey, if you need something off the books, I gotcha."
Yeah, and so like
that's crazy. Dude.
We got in, like went to breakfast and all. I shot her a text and I was like, "Hey, thank you again so much for all of the recommendations, like all of this stuff for Nashville. We really appreciate it, and I'll absolutely like let you know what's going on." She checked in with me twice over the weekend about like how if things were like good for our ride to the airport and all. And like at the end of the day, we were able to work out our ride to the airport on Sunday morning. But she even checked in that morning like and was like, "Hey, were you guys able to like get it set up?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're good."
Hell yeah, that's so cool.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did have one question that I posted in our Discord pre episode that I was curious. I wanted to hear your thoughts about it because I think I have a kind of weird take. So, we go to Colleen's cousin's wedding. That side of her family is like evangelical Christian. Very similar to like my upbringing and everything that I was like grew up in, like the same type of songs on Sundays, yada yada yada. So we're there during the ceremony and they have like a worship song that they wanted to like have everyone sing along with and everything for the ceremony. It was really nice, like little song. They had it printed on the bulletin, and so I just like jumped in and sang along, and like I picked up the tune and just kind of went with it because there's like a very generic formula for those kinds of songs that like it's very easy to pick up. Like the goal is for like everyone to be able to sing along, so I picked up on it easily. Colleen didn't really sing along, which like that was like no biggie. There were plenty of other people that weren't either. Nah, there were plenty of other people that weren't singing along either. But my take is, because part of like talking afterwards, Colleen was like, I didn't really feel comfortable singing along to it. And I was like, okay, that's fair. Like because if it's not like a religion you prescribe to or like whatever, singing along to the song doesn't, I mean, it doesn't quite mesh or whatever. But like in my brain, the way I looked at it was, I'm like, I sing along to plenty of other songs in my car that like I don't have personal experience or I can't like relate. Like when I'm singing along to Kendrick in the car and everything, like that doesn't mean that I've like lived his life or like that I'm like prescribing when I'm singing along to Good Kid, Mad City. That doesn't mean that I'm like prescribing myself to be like out there robbing houses and like driving around getting into drive-bys with my boys. Like that's not that's not my lifestyle. So I kind of like look at it the same way in that aspect. It's like I don't have to necessarily like believe this to sing along and like be a part of this for their like wedding.
maybe it's not like, okay, I'll say this. When I'm at a meal that isn't like mine, like at another family or a friend's or like a holiday or whatever, like when the moment to say grace comes, I don't put my head down. I don't pretend, right?
Okay.
So maybe, and I don't want to like, put ideas in I don't want to say what she said, but maybe it's not about like not believing in it, but it's kind of like this isn't for me really. Like, yes, maybe the better comparison is in like you singing along with Kendrick, even not having had those experiences. Maybe the better comparison would be like, even though I know every song to Katy Perry's Tiger, I'm not gonna sing it. Even though figuring out the lyrics to or the cadence to like Michael Jackson's Thriller or something, I'm still not going to sing it even if the whole room is like,
Okay.
it's not for me, it's not my thing.
That's fair.
So, but I think it is your upbringing that leads you to be like way more comfortable in just joining in, even if it's not a part of your everyday routine.
Yeah.
I would likely be in her position as well. Like, even if I could pick it up, I just like, okay, this moment's not for me.
I gotcha.
But I will say my original take. I'm actually glad I tempered my whatever a little bit, because if you think about it, it's reasonable at a wedding to have worship songs. Like that's where it started. It's like it's a church bound thing. So that I really like overlooked when I originally like reacted to it. But from that perspective, I totally understand. Like I don't actively participate in things that would make me feel disingenuous to do.
Okay.
Where like, yeah, even if it's easy to pick up on the tune, like maybe it feels like that's not who I am, and just like to sing along, it may be actually more insulting or more whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, or like give off.
I don't want to.
No, that's
Colleen believes or anything.
No, that's a good perspective on it too, because I was thinking about, and like for me, like I mean, it makes sense that it was just like a very nonchalant, very easy thing for me to do and just like hop in and all. And like I will say that I did have a second where I was like, I don't really like, this isn't really my thing anymore. But I'm like, it's their wedding. Like they put it in here as part of the ceremony for like people to be able to participate. And I was like,
Yep.
Why not? Like, I'll join in, like, participate, make it sound good so that they, like, try and give some enjoyment back to the bride and groom, because they clearly put it there for a reason. And so, like, that was my take. But I appreciate your side, because I knew you would have a different, like, view of it than I would. And I think that, yeah, like, if you feel like you're being disingenuous, then you feel almost like it would be more disrespectful to the situation to like participate. So that totally makes sense to me in my mind.
And there is a way to just like respectfully not, participate, kind of just be silent, head down, that kind of thing. Just like have a silent moment of reflection or whatever. But yeah, I think that is a beautiful moment, though. Like, thinking about it without my own personal biases, I think there is power in group song. Like, I've heard many times artists say, like, the most powerful thing they've experienced in their life is holding the microphone out and having the fans sing the words back to them.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be something powerful. So I think there's something to it, religious or not.
Yeah, well, and that's like a very interesting part of it too, is like I think that view is the way that we should view like singing as a group. I feel like into when I hear people talking about singing as a group or whatever, it's usually like in a negative, and it's usually referred to as like, oh, are we gonna get around the campfire and sing Kumbaya? It's like some like pissed off person, like blah blah blah, and like I feel like I hear that side of it a lot more than like the really like beautiful side of being in a group together singing and like having sharing those words and that like moment. So a little aside, but I thought that was definitely something I was curious to see like your opinion, like I said, because I knew that it would be different than mine, and so I was interested to hear your perspective. So
Different views are always good. No, I really like that question. That does sound like a really fun weekend.
yeah, it was awesome. So that is my rose. It was a longer one. My seed and thorn kind of tie together a bit.
Nice.
So for my seed, I decided after some contemplation to go ahead and sign up for the next season of basketball. I said I'm gonna give it another season, and then
That's what I was hoping for.
when we get through the end of that one, I may take a break at that point, more just due to life things and all, like getting ready to move and different other stuff going on in the summer, to at least take a short respite from playing. But I am really enjoying it, and I've thought about it like a lot through the week, and I realized that just stopping, it's not, and it's partially what you were saying about like, if I stop, then I'm not going to get the practice and playing and everything that I need to be able to, like, when I decide to play again, like maybe be a little bit better, or like have like worked out some stuff. But also just like, I am very, very critical of myself a lot of times. And so thinking that through and looking at things and all, I kind of came to the conclusion that I'm like, okay, I need to, like, as Colleen said, just like be kind to myself a little bit and like, and just take things in stride a little bit more and see how it goes. And so that brings me to my thorn, which was our game last night, because I felt really good. Like, I got there early. I got a little bit of a warm-up in. I was feeling good. Things were, like, clicking. It was a 10 o'clock game, so I was like, I got there early because I hate sitting around for, like, 3 hours when I get home from work and doing nothing, because then I just feel lethargic by the time I'm, like, there and trying to run around. So we're playing and all, and one of our teammates, who he's the gentleman who likes to yell at everyone to do stuff that he's not doing, and so he hurt his knee decently badly earlier on in the game, and so like it was brutal. It looked not good. He just collapsed. Like, I ran and got ice packs for him and like whatnot, and so he was chilling. But then he proceeded to keep like yelling at our teammates, like from the bleachers, like
with an ice pack on.
Yeah, yelling at people to do stuff. Okay. He got a little back talk to him, because he was just being like, it was not beneficial. And like, it's not that he doesn't sometimes have like good tidbits of value that come out, but it's that his mouth is just a non-stop conveyor belt of words. and like 95% of them are not valuable. And then it's just you running your mouth and annoying all of your teammates who are trying to focus on like actually playing. They're just hearing this like thing yapping from the side. So he got a little bit of back talk from the team and decided that he was going to go ahead and sub himself back into the game to prove everyone wrong, or I don't know, like I guess it was a pride over intelligence kind of moment where he just was like, I don't care if I'm hurt and can barely move at all on the basketball court. I'm just going to do this because they talked shit to me. Right. And like not even recognize, hey, shit, maybe they're talking back and saying shit to me for a reason. Like maybe let me internalize this for a moment. No, he decided to go back out on the court. He had we were winning when he subbed himself in. We lost the game by about 10. I subbed myself out and I just watched and let it happen. At this point in the season, like we didn't have a shot of like making the upper bracket to go to the actual championship. So I was like, okay, we're playing consolation bracket anyway. Right. So I was just like, I'm just gonna sit back, let this happen. I watched the collapse, just like it was. Our team was playing 4 versus 5 on the court, and he was just standing out there, not doing anything. So I let him do that for about 10 minutes, and I subbed him out because I do genuinely like not want him to fuck up his knee even worse. Right. Because like honestly, it might be like an ACL or an MCL type thing. Like it was bad. I don't like. He could barely walk out on the basketball court, so it was pretty rough. But yeah, that was just my thorn, because it was like a whole just like Jenga tower falling over kind of situation. Like you see it tipping, and like you're just waiting and waiting, and then it all crashes and everything. And it was like, but there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I want to win, but to me it just wasn't worth getting myself involved in the whole situation and the upset feelings. I'm just like, I'll let it go. See if anyone else like on the team chimes in, is like, yo man, like you're hurting us, like go take a seat. Right. No one did. And for like 10 minutes I subbed in. I'm like, hey, show. I'm like, I'm subbing you out. Like you gotta take care of your knee. And just left it at that. He dipped out without like saying anything to us after the game. It was not a fun scenario. So the other, I guess, part of my thorn is like we still have 2 games left, so I'm not looking forward to potential awkwardness. I don't handle those kinds of like you can cut the tension with a knife situations very well. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, that is my rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
Interesting. That well, what is very different about your telling of that is that you seem to have a like disconnected, view of it, where you're just like, I'm just gonna let this happen. He can hurt himself. I think that's huge.
Yeah, like I tried to support. Like when he first hurt himself, I booked it to the desk in the complex to get some ice packs. I got them for him and everything. I checked in on him at halftime because it happened just like 5 minutes before the end of the first half. So I went over and checked in. I'm like, hey, rec league basketball isn't worth fucking up your knee even worse. Like, just chill out, ice it, take the ice off, put the ice back on. And so I did my part to try and like help him, give him the right advice. I'm like, I've hurt myself in this league. I've hurt myself plenty, like dozens of times before this in previous sports and everything. Like, I'm like, this is not worth like you not being able to walk at work, being on crutches potentially, like whatever. Is just not worth the rec league basketball game and your pride for 15 minutes of glory, if you can even call it that. Dude. Like,
yeah, it's just sad.
Yeah, so yeah, like I kind of had to disconnect myself from it because I just had to be like, I've done all I can, and I wanted to win, of course. Until I subbed out and he subbed in, we were winning. So I can't be too hard.
That as a dub,
It's a
team down.
Yeah, so it's a what do they call it? Not a metaphorical victory. It's a
I don't know, personal victory.
Yeah, it's not the word I'm looking for, but nonetheless, how about yourself? How was your week? What's been going on?
Let's get into it. So, all right. So let's get into it. So I'll start with my rows. I was playing a game called Hunt Showdown the other day, and it's like a PUBG kind of game, except it's PvP VE. So there's other players on the server. There's other players on the map, but there's also like zombies, and you're working towards getting to like a boss monster that you kill, and then you get the bounty and extract. You're like old Western gunslingers hunting these like creature bounties. I've been getting into it a little bit with a friend of the show, Buddha Spoon, and I was playing solo, trying to get some chops in the game because it's pretty difficult. So I was playing solo, went one round, got taken out really quick. But the next game that I played, I had a goal in mind. I had been watching some streams over the weekend. They were doing drops on Twitch, so I was watching some of the better players, getting a sense of how to play. And there was a bunch of stuff that I like really learned and like applied in that in the second game. And I made it. I got all three of the clues. I found the boss monster. I killed the boss monster. I banished, which is like a long-standing period of the boss monster dead, and basically just like channeling until you're able to like pick up the bounty token and run away. It basically gives the other hunters a chance to like converge on your position and like decide if.
Are they alerted of what
yeah,
so it's not just like they still have to find the clues and track you down.
They're shown exactly where you are. And then once you have the bounty, they can see you represented as like a little lightning bolt on the map. So when you have the bounty, your exact location your approximate location is shown.
Yeah.
So I did the banish, picked up the bounty, and motored towards an extract, and like I was on edge all the way up until I picked up the bounty, and then it like really turned on. Like I could literally feel my heart, like it started to feel like a bass concert, right? Just the thump, dude. And I'm like so focused on just getting to the exit. When you're holding a bounty, you have a power called Dark Sight, and it reveals other hunters as like orange. So as I'm coming up to the extract, I go into Dark Sight, and I see a hunter literally like back and forthing, like behind like what would have been some kind of cover. I was like, oh my god. So like I'm gonna have to fight this guy to get out with the bounty. I've made it this far, right? My heart is going. Thunk, 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 thunk. And so instead of like engaging, I assumed that he didn't know where I was. So I just played it slow. I crept up to the extract, and we were literally like on either side of this cart as it's just like 29, 28, 27. You you got to wait at the extract for 30 seconds before you're hoisted and you're out safe and you win. Dude,
How long does that dark sight last?
you have 5 seconds of dark sight.
Oh,
So you like click it on, get a sense, and then you're off, and then you only have 4 seconds left, right? So it's
okay.
like very limited, and 15 seconds, 14 seconds, and I'm just like shifting back and forth behind these boxes, and he just stayed on the other side, and boom, I got extracted, and I pushed back from the desk. I was like, woo! Like, it was the most intense experience that I've had recently, and it was so much fun.
Those
nailed it.
those are always great experiences, like when you win.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because I've the only thing I can compare that to that I like recently is in Call of Duty playing Warzone with our team, and when you get into like a 1v1 at the end, or you're the last person left on your team and there's only a few people left, and you're just like, for me personally, I get that. My heart's racing. I'm like jittery. Like I do not feel relaxed. Like I definitely mess up more because of it, because I'm nervous being that last one. But like the times that you can like hold it together and pull it off it's sick. That's awesome.
Definitely worth the stress. Yeah, so that was insanely fun.
Well, is this a free game, or is this like a new release that came out recently? It looks like I pulled it up.
It's about 4 years old, but it's in continual development. Like they just got updated, recently.
It looks like. Oh, the other thing are there voice comms in it?
I don't know if it has. I don't know if it has an in-game voice comms, but you can play multiplayer.
Gotcha. I was gonna ask because it reminds me, looking at it, of Tarkov a little bit from what I've seen, but Tarkov has the proximity chat and everything with it, so like that's automatically kind of in the game and everything. So, but no, that. First off, the game looks sweet. Second off, congrats on the dub. That's sick.
Thank you.
So,
but yeah, so that was my rose, and that felt like one of those sessions where it was like, oh fuck, so I can do this. It was like very confidence building.
Nice.
So that was cool. My thorn is an interesting one. Obviously, if you're watching on the YouTube, if you've been tracking the haircuts, I went from having a lot of hair to not a lot of hair all at once. And it's because I was having some like oiling and like dandruff issues, and I think it's because of like always having a head covering on. It wasn't able to like breathe or do whatever it has to do. Because I'll tell you, for a long time, I wouldn't use shampoo at like large intervals because my hair was natural, like it stayed naturally just like not oily. But after I had it in the bun and long and whatever, and the winter, it got kind of dry and whatever. So I was having some dandruff. I shaved it all off because I couldn't solve the dandruff with shampoo. So what I did, I shaved it all off, and I've been using my body wash, which has moisturizers in it. I've been fucking blah, 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 blah on the top of the head, and my dandruff has quite receded, I would say. And so, I'm happy and comfortable to continue growing out my hair because now I'm not going to be fucking making it snow on my dinner.
Nice. Well, I will. Well, for anyone who's having issues with that, there's a product called Melaleuca. It's a shampoo, but it is very good for dry scalp and things like that. That's something that my dad has like used for years and years and years. I've like used it here and there. It's not something that I typically have an issue with, fortunately, but I know from his experience and all that it's something that works really well. So if you are looking for a shampoo that can do a similar moisturizing effect and all, definitely something to worthwhile to check out. Because that's like a frustrating, I think, issue because there's not an easy solution. You can't just take like lotion and just like lotion into your like
Right.
lather it into your head. It's such a weird thing to try and kind of work out and resolve. So
Yeah, it was like it was a little bit embarrassing as well because I mean, there's a sense in which the Head and Shoulders commercials make it feel like you've like committed a sin by having dandruff. So I wanted to get rid of it as fast as possible. But yeah, it
so
seems
yeah,
to be on
fuck
the
you, Head and
backslide.
Shoulders.
Well, not that, but
No.
just like, hey, come on, man, we're all humans here.
Yeah.
But my seed, really quick. Another shout out to Buddha Spoon. I have asked for his help to work on the stat tracking Excel sheet that I had for the Commander 9 League. Obviously, once we had a player leave back in 2021, we stopped doing the like stat tracking for particular decks. We just were enjoying Commander, but we talked about some different solutions for tracking, and so I enlisted Buddha's help to see if we can make that a reality. And I'm quite excited. I was doing some Excel learning myself to get a sense of some functions and how to set up pages and whatever.
Nice.
So I'm really excited to be able to get some data and like really see like what's going on with the play group and see if there's any like cool things that we can glean.
Nice. That's like, and I know I've talked about it before because I love Excel because it like when you do some, I think I like Excel because once you figure those things out and you do something really cool with it, that's like not a normal or typical easy use of like, oh, I just want to make a chart that looks nice for whatever. Like when you're
Right.
actually doing like the data compiling and everything, and you get it to work and it does what you want it to do, I feel so like accomplished with
Yeah.
it. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to also just seeing what stats and different stuff you come through with, because you can of course like track like which players have played. So like you can do it by what decks are being played, like what players are in the group. Like you can say Brett's there for 3 games this week, but next week he can't make it for any, but you're there for all 6. Then like he's just, you could have him be like, oh, he got 1 win out of his 3 games, and I got 2 wins, whatever, out of my 6,
Right.
and so like our win rate is the same, just different sample size. Like there are fun things you can look at and kind of pick up on.
Yeah, there's a drop down menu feature, and I think I want to use that because it's basically just like, you know, you learn about a function and you just like think of a way that you can use it or incorporate it. That drop down menu, I think it'd be fun to where you could just like select any of our names and have like three little sections of like the most played deck, their win rate, and like, you know, some other dumb little stats. So you could go through just each player very quickly and just like get a small little story. I think that'd be neat.
Oh, 100%. You could like set it up so you have like player, and then this next column is like the deck they played, and then the next player and the deck they play, and like do that kind of thing, and then
Oh
you'd be
yeah,
able to like there's a lot you could do with it, which is
infinite
cool.
options.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. So that's my Rose, Thorn, and Seed. Do you want to move on to some Formula One? Talk about the what would you say, the preseason testing?
So before we get to that, I
Yeah, go for
did
it.
want to talk about some other racing.
Okay.
And so I was watching the first Indy Car race of the weekend
Great.
over the weekend. So Sunday, when I was flying back, Southwest Airlines let me watch live TV in the air. And while I was up there, the Indy Car race was going on and all. So
Nice.
first off, Roman Grosjean had a really, really solid weekend. He was P1 in their first practice for the weekend with his time. Looked really solid. But then in, I believe it was their last practice session. I don't know if it's FP3 or how many they have. he ended up like slamming into the back of another driver's car. And so I had the same reaction as Will Buxton actually did to it, which made me feel slightly good about myself with my racing knowledge, because it was very contrary to a lot of the immediate reactions that I was seeing in to the reply to the motorsport.com tweet that showed the incident and all. And first off, the driver that Grosjean ran into was like, I don't know what he was thinking. That was reckless. This is practice, like that kind of thing. And a lot of the comments were like, Grosjean crashing in F1, now crashing in Indy Car, like big change and shit like that. And it bothered me a lot because Grosjean was on a flying lap. He's going all out, and like 5 cars bunched up going like 10 miles an hour, like lagging along right at the end of the lap in a corner to go like start their flying laps and get their little like jump start. So in my opinion, could Grosjean have seen it and pulled out of the lap? Maybe. When you're going like 160 miles an hour or whatever it is, though, like your spotters, your team, your pit team should be like, abort lap, abort fast lap. You are like, we've heard it on team radios in F1 where people have to abort their laps because of different situations, or yellow flag on turn 7 or whatever. Like, that's not an uncommon thing that something would be. But like, my frustration is like, there's like 5 cars that are all bunched together going like practically at a standstill, and like he's getting blasted he's fucking flying around the track as fast as he can to try and put in a good like hot lap, and he gets some ridicule. So that was just my like take on that, because I felt like he kind of got unfairly hit just because everyone's like, and like I saw stuff in the comments from, oh, Grosjean's crashing again, to, oh, the only reason people like this guy is because he had a near-death experience. I'm like, no, he's a good driver, and he proved it on Sunday, finishing P5 behind his teammate, who was last year's champion, along with 3 of the other top drivers from last season in Indy Car. So he started out very strong. It was a cool race to watch, but the other interesting aspect that I didn't realize about IndyCar, and I don't know if this is new or how long this has been around, but IndyCar, you get, I believe it's 150 seconds of your push to pass, which is like kind of a DRS type thing, where it kicks the engine gears up into high, and you use a little extra fuel mode. But yeah, so it's but you have a limited amount. So it was interesting watching like, oh, like this guy burned 30 seconds of his push to pass like early on in the race. He only has 100 and whatever seconds left and all. And so kind of watching that and waiting and watching it tick down to the end where you're looking at a pretty tight race and everything, and who has a little bit more juice in that, and who's going to be able to make it on the fuel that they have to the end of the race, and different things like that. It was it was very cool, but it was like a nice contrast to the F1 and like what I was used to. I felt like I was picking up on a lot of things because of my knowledge of F1, and like being able to easily see the differences between like the racing styles. I thought it was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Let me go back to the Grosjean thing, because I have some thoughts. The crashing in F1 and now crashing in IndyCar, I'm not sure he's the right driver if that would be like the narrative you want to go with. Like, if let's say Mazepin goes over to another formula or another series and then crashes, you might be able to say that, right? Where okay, he is consistently not doing well in these vehicles. But if we look at Grosjean, if I remember correctly, that was one instance of a tough crash.
He did have a few different crashes while he was on Haas that took him out of races and races that he was performing pretty well in and everything.
Okay.
So he did have those moments. However, he was driving a Haas. I mean, I know that sounds pretty tough towards Haas's team, but when he was driving the Lotus car before Haas took that spot, he was getting podiums. He was finishing high. He had a couple crashes in the Lotus too. Everyone crashes at some point. Verstappen had a couple crashes.
Right.
Lewis had a couple crashes this past year. That's just something
kind of the
when
point that I was trying to get to.
Yeah, and that's something that happens. Did Grosjean have a couple more than other people? Probably, but nothing outrageous or he's not some crazy outlier where it's everyone else had 4 crashes and Grosjean had 15. It's not like that. And also, looking at him in the Haas and then seeing Schumacher and Mazepin drive it the next year because it was essentially the same car, you could see that car was not easy to handle like other cars and everything too. And so, yeah, Grosjean has more experience and everything. He also crashed less than Mazepin or spun less than Mazepin. So, I think I agree. It was a weird, it's a meme that has kind of just stuck that I'm just it doesn't quite fit, but it fits their narrative. So meme away, I guess. But
yeah, that's pretty unfortunate because going P5 on Sunday after something like that, that's got to be more indicative of the moment in time rather than is he a bad driver overall and should he be here and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it was a weird.
You have to bring it that.
Yeah, it was a weird thing because I was I looked at the clip and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, he went kind of hard into the back of this guy, but he was on a flying lap. I don't anyone on a flying lap whom, yeah, and
that's a tough spot.
So it was, but very fun watching Indy Car. I'm hoping to get a little bit of watching that in throughout the F1 season as well, here and there. Maybe on if there's some races on some of the off weeks, I'll watch in on that, and we'll have a little bit of stuff to chat about on the pod. But it was very cool, and I enjoyed that a lot. But moving into F1, I know that you had some notes about Andretti and their joining F1. I also was looking at that and the potential for that to happen and everything. But what are your thoughts? What were you seeing about that? Because it seemed like there was a mixed reception on the potential of him joining F1.
Well, the note that I have about Andretti is not the them moving in. I don't know if talking about rumor mill stuff is useful. My note about Andretti is that he's the one who coined the phrase porpoising. That's all.
What is porpoising?
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm actually
right now?
No, I'm not. Legitimately, what is porpoising?
Oh, that makes me so happy. All right, so so this weekend, or the 23rd to the 25th, we had the running in Bahrain. One of the big takeaways from the weekend is the ground effect causing stability issues for the suspension. So what ends up happening is these teams are running their car too close to the ground, but these new floorboards are all about ground effect, drawing air under the car to use that as like a ground seal and basically suck the car to the floor, thereby creating the downforce.
Like going fast enough that it almost like vacuums it downward. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So the last time we had these kinds of setups in Formula One was somewhere around 40 years ago, and one of the main issues is there is a balance that the engineers and the aero team has to strike between ride height and also like downforce levels. So if you bring it too low, that downforce it sucks the base of the car down towards the floor, and then so where the diffusers used to be, the back end of the car, that hits the floor, thereby sealing off where the ground was exiting, so the suspension takes hold again, brings the vehicle back up to normal ride height.
So it's like
engages again. You got it. So the back end is like flipping up and down. And interestingly enough, and here's where it's not so new. So when you're listening to some of the broadcasts, some of the pundits talking, we love throwing out this word. It was such a buzzword during this running, but it's an issue that other formulas have seen, other series have seen. Now, they got a quote from Ross Brawn, and they asked him about the porpoising issue and, what's going on, and he effectively said that the engineers that are in the paddocks now, they're kind of young, they're kind of new, and we've all dealt with this issue before. There are solutions, there are ways to get past it, and he found it weird that that's the issue that they were having with the regulations. He said, I thought they would have seen it. I thought they would have figured this out. So I think that truly speaks to this new era of F1 that we're in, where all of these teams are coming at the new regulations with totally different ideas. But you look at somebody who very much knows the technical side, i.e. Ross Brawn, and he's saying yeah, we saw this coming a mile away. It was surprising to them to see the cars porpoising, because the way the regs would have been to, someone who knows, it would have been, oh yeah, these cars are going to be too low.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And it'll be weird to see how that works throughout the season, because different tracks will create different potential for that as well. Just in terms of elevation changes and different hills, banking, things like that. I'm sure those all come into play pretty heavily in terms of setup week to week with how high and whatnot they're setting up these cars. But I do find that odd, similarly to Ross Brawn, because you would think that teams especially going into a new era of F1, in my opinion, it would be very sensical to hire a couple of consultants who are chief engineers, whatever, for previous F1 teams at the time of rule changes in F1. Whether it was, hey, maybe you don't still have the guy that was the head engineer for Mercedes when they switched to the turbo hybrid era, but hey, maybe let's have him be a consultant. Hey, let's look into who was the guy in charge back in the night, whatever. Because if you're able to get these, even if it's as simple as an hour-long phone call of hey, what were some issues that you guys really were going through when you switched to the new era, because you were developing new parts and creating new whatever, what were some things that you guys ran into, and avoid history repeating themselves. And I feel like a lot of these teams have those kinds of people on staff So that is weird because even though, yeah, like the new engineers and the new like principals and everything are typically younger and may not have been around in F1, been alive 40 years ago when
Right.
when Andretti was racing. Um, but there are plenty of people who have been around for that long who are still around motorsport that would be, I feel like, an easy phone call. So,
Well, here's the here's another interesting element that came out of the weekend, and this may shed a little light on that. So, Mercedes has been experimenting with new technology in their like sim and like training. No, not training, but like their vehicle setup strategies. So they've taken to using machine learning and AI to iterate a setup on the car and just run a like thousands of laps on this track in whatever. And that was the first time that I was hearing those words associated with Formula One. Yes, we know about sims, and they can they can run they can run simulations without the driver, but using AI and machine learning is very different than like running a simulation.
yeah.
So I find it fascinating that as we enter into the new era of Formula 1, we're hearing elements of the kinds of things that are pushing the boundaries of other industries and other areas that teams are now trying to figure out how they can apply that to their vehicles, how they can apply that to the wind tunnel and get an edge on their competition. So I say that to say that maybe there's a degree where no matter what that individual could say, it's probably pretty fucking antiquated.
To some extent, but they're like, I mean, just even in this instance, like if you have a guy who was around F1 40 years ago and you're like, hey, like, what were some of the common issues? Like, we're trying to avoid previous problems that have happened when you're trying to make cars go fast. Like, they could be like, oh, yeah, porpoising. Or, oh, yeah, like, we couldn't, like, weight distribution. Or, oh, like, because those things change. Like clearly with this season of F1, like they're talking about like this downforce and the ground effect and everything, and there's like from what I've seen, the cars. It's a change from the previous season where they're talking about, oh, like Red Bull's got a higher rake on their car. Their tail end's lifted a bit more than the Mercedes. It seems like I haven't heard as much of that kind of thing talking about rake and all. It's more about, yeah, these other aspects of the car. I mean, like I think that's why teams have had guys like Mercedes bring on Nicky Lauda for a long time and everything.
Between generations.
Yeah, Nicky Lauda, like he's not going to be able to tell Lewis like, oh yeah, I drove an F1 car in 1960. Like here's how you drive it today. But he can give perspective on a number of different things in terms of racing, in terms of perspective, in terms of like thought process, attitude, mental toughness, and things like that. So like you can get aspects and things like that without like from people with previous experience that yeah maybe like you are going to get not maybe you're going to get a ton of good data from running simulations, using AI, using machine learning, things like that. But there's always something to real life knowledge that sometimes those things just can't quite compute. Like AI and machine learning and things like that. Like, hey, maybe that running a million laps on Monaco's track will find a better racing line with the new car than a previous racing line because of the downforce, because of like whatever the speeds that they're going at, that like maybe, oh, you break this turn a little sooner and you can cut it different. Like AI and machine learning are going to continually look for the most optimal way to do something. So it might end up finding a way that is outside the box for different aspects of driving than like a typical racing driver who's like, oh, this is the racing line, this is my break point, this is what I have to do. Like, you can find other ways to do it with that like repetition and thousands, millions of laps, like with a machine learning AI. But there's also that side of like practical knowledge and like real life situations that are not going to run like a simulation that you have to figure out. Like, simulation's not going to be able to figure out how to drive when you get tapped on the side on lap 1 and you have a tiny bit of the carbon fiber off your front wing is broken off, and now all of a sudden your like aero is changed completely. Like, all that machine learning and AI and thousands of laps in a pristine car, just like, they don't give you the same data as now what your driver is like dealing with.
I'm not sure it's about how to race. I don't think that's like what they're using it for. It very much sounded like they were using it for like engine setup and aero, and like, if you put like these sticky uppy bits as opposed to these sticky uppy bits, let's run 1,000 laps of that and see what it does. Oh, that cuts down blah blah. I think it's a lot of getting the engineering and the aerodynamics and the systems all working properly. I would very much agree with you that having drivers in like drivers in Formula One cars is the best way to practice driving Formula One. I would definitely agree.
Yeah.
But in the testing and the data gathering phase,
Yeah,
I think it's very useful to be able to run your engine turn to 5 10,000 times on all of the different tracks, and then tune it up just once and then see what that does. Like, that's all very useful that the teams can't do on track day in and day out. So I think that's what it was.
Okay.
That's what it was more used for. But either way, any of this stuff, no matter what it's used for, it's all it's incredibly exciting that we're talking about race car drivers and AI and machine learning and all of these stuff, or all of these elements, like, all at once. I think that's fascinating. But this conversation originally started with the porpoising issue.
Yes.
And that was just like the meme from the weekend, and a lot of the conversation surrounded that issue and what's going on and blah, blah, blah. But the short of it is that the new F1 floors are the downforce generator, and the teams are going to have to come up with a variety of different solutions to combat the pull down of the suspension. All incredibly interesting things.
Definitely. And I think that's a very exciting part of this season, just because it's like we're figuring out what issues and like what challenges like teams are going to have to overcome and everything. Right. So there's going to be some interesting, like, I'm looking forward to the F1 tech talks that they have on there that that F1 puts out on YouTube, and kind of seeing what discussions, what interesting things they talk about. But other F1 related things. So we don't have to get super into it. Do you have any thoughts on, obviously, the Ukraine, Russia, and...
We don't gotta go into that.
Cool. Just wanted to see if you had any thoughts. I saw
I respect Vettel and the driver association, like, bringing that up as a point. I think it's super reasonable. They did it for the Middle Eastern countries for the things that they have going on there.
Yep.
But I have to say, like, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, it wasn't something I wanted to.
People trying to help other people. That's
Yep.
all.
I didn't want to go super down that because that's not our thing, and I don't want to get into all of that stuff. But but I know that the FIA obviously came out, and they are, as of right now, they've canceled this year's Russian Grand Prix and everything, and so that was part of the unfortunate F1 news for this past week or so. So I would be remiss not to at least mention that as of right now, the Russian Grand Prix is canceled. But we can definitely move forward looking into some other topics that we have going for this week.
I do. That's actually a pretty interesting segue because I do have a small note about that. So IEM Katowice started on the 15th of February, and Simple, the in-game leader for Navi, had some very, I would say, touching words and described it in a way that I've often felt about esports, where he looked across the stage at his teammates and he said, this person is from this place, this person's from that place, this person's from that place, and he says, we're all friends and blah, blah, blah. But what really hit home was Simple said, we're all humans first, so let's just have a great tournament and enjoy being here together. And I thought that was very powerful. So that is what I think to be the beauty of competition, especially competition that can be upheld in a way that is good for multiple parties in multiple parts of the world. I think there's nothing better than a multinational tournament where the Danish, the Russians, the Europeans, the whoever the fuck can come and play this game and be counted as equals on the stage. And I think Simple's words really kind of exemplified that, and that's like really what I'm here for.
Definitely. I think that's an awesome perspective to be able to have, because I think that is a very mature perspective, and to be able to look at things from a 25,000 overhead view, where you're like, these people that are across the stage, whatever their nationality, haven't done anything wrong to me other than maybe get a nice op shot that took me out in that last map. Like, it's not this is what they're doing for work. Yeah, I'm sure most of them enjoy it. I would hope so. But at the same time, to be able to say, hey, like, these people on the other side of the stage, like, they're just here to game just like me and see who's better. Like, that's a nice perspective to be able to have with everything going on in the world. So,
well, I think it sets the tone beautifully for a tournament that is effectively, like, for these players and these teams, it's a war, it's a battle, right? It's they're fighting for something.
Yeah. And I think honestly, just as I think it makes it more impactful that, for one, Simple is like a huge prominent figure in the CS:GO community. Like, he is highly acclaimed, famous name. Him being from Ukraine, also obviously his perspective on it carries a lot of weight. So I also just appreciate it from him kind of coming out and saying that, because there are a lot of ways that people could say things differently that would be a lot less, like, good for everyone. So I appreciate him being tactful and also sincere, it seemed, from, because I did watch that clip as well, and see the sincerity and how he feels about everything, to just be able to like go out and do what he does best and hit some heads. So
Clicking heads, that's pretty much what we're all here for. But one of the biggest notes about that IEM Katowice is live fans. And there were people in the stands, they were cheering, and it just like, it makes it so much more. Like, yeah, the casters can be excited, and yeah, like, it can come through in the way they're describing what's happening, but there's like, you cannot create a moment more than, like, you know, somebody getting a 3-piece and the crowd just going insane behind them. And this is what we had at IEM Katowice. We don't got to talk about the whole tournament. Obviously, there's millions of matches. But the grand final was FaZe versus G2. It was a best of 5. And the 3-0 scoreline does not really tell the story of the matches. Like, you really have to go and look at the round count for each of the boards, because it was down to the wire, multiple overtimes. I'm pretty sure it went to 3 OTs on map 1, 5 OTs in map 2, and then FaZe was able to wrap it up in regulation in map 3 on Dust 2. But my God, was that like some quality CSGO. It was a good final.
yeah, and I'll have to go back and watch that. I mostly had seen the clips of Monacy, the yeah, G2's offer leading up. I believe those were before the grand finals. Those were the semifinals to make it in. If I'm, I think the clips that I saw, like the 3-piece, the 1v3. On, I think it was like a site, I forget what map it was, but just like going ham on people, and so 16-year-old, like, that's exciting. 16-year-old kid playing CSGO, hitting some crazy shots, and even with FaZe coming out on top, like, that was pretty cool, getting to see some of that. So I definitely will go back and watch this IEM, because at least the grand finals, because I think that's it's fun. CS:GO is a cool game.
Well, I want to just to give you a little bit of a storyline to pay attention to. So I'm pretty sure on FaZe, the player Rops was out, and they had Rain. So Rain was on their main roster, and they had JKS subbing in. There was a point in the tournament where Rops was back, and it would have been JKS getting subbed out, but because of his performance, they kept Rain subbed out and just let them play with JKS, because they were having a little bit of synergy, right? So they brought Rops in and kept JKS. And if you watch map 2, it is JKS that gets the clutch kill to bring them to the 5 OTs, that, like, they end up winning map 2, then they have momentum, and then they seal it up in map 3. Dude, this 1v1 that he pulls off is so insane. And it just, like, it is awesome to watch, because before the series, they asked him, they were like, oh, like, how deep do you guys want to get with FaZe? And he's like, I just don't want to be the reason they drop out. And arguably, he was like a linchpin in them making it, not to the grand finals, but through the grand final as well.
Well,
so
and Rops, like,
all-star.
Rops ended up putting up the top numbers in map 1 and 3 for FaZe 2.
He
like,
was honestly insane.
His map 1, like, he popped off like a 1.45 KDA is the highest that you see in that entire 3-game or 3-map set, like, of anyone. That's pretty impressive.
it was really fun. The casting was really high level, and dude, just watch the map, watch the mini map, and you will see the level of detail that they have on that mini map, and it makes the fucking Halo thing seem like even more of a joke, honestly.
As soon as you said mini map, I knew where that was going.
Predictable complaints, but dude, yeah. FaZe versus G2 Grand Final at IEM Katowice 2022. It was super fucking exciting. That was their first Katowice for FaZe, by the way. Not their first major, but their first Katowice.
And just a tweet I saw. So G2 Esports, their official Twitter account, tweeted out, "Don't let G2 being in the IEM Katowice Grand Final distract you from the fact that Carlos got backdoored by Xpeke in the Spodek Arena back in 2013 to get knocked out of IEM Katowice Season 7."
Oh, wow, okay.
And so just thinking about how far back that is and everything, but the fact that G2's official Twitter account tweeted that out about their owner.
That's funny.
Thinking back, like, that clip and looking at Carlos and his goddamn scarf, like, freaking out and pissed off afterwards, that's like that's a memory that always brings me a little chuckle. So
you gotta love live on stage reactions from the players. It's good.
Definitely.
It's good stuff.
But now moving forward from CSGO into some other memes that I got to see about League of Legends. Lots of people memeing about Reggie's house. Reggie's house is in shambles, Justin.
It is in shambles. They're looking really good.
Just mostly the... I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Reggie Reddit post that he was
No.
So this is turned...
I live under a rock. You gotta inform me.
You're on Reddit, but...
I'm not. I haven't been on Reddit in forever.
I haven't really either. But I saw it on Twitter. So I guess not too long ago, Reggie posted, I guess this was in the TSM subreddit or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So Reginald Bro, because of course he says bro all the time and that's his Reddit username.
Okay.
He says, "There's no fucking way I would ever let us end up like CLG. I would sell my house, car, and clothes, my everything, to sign the best talent at that point." And then they lost to CLG in this Super Week. So Reggie's house is better be up for sale pretty soon.
Yeah, I want his fuck it Bay Life t-shirts.
Yeah, there were he's got to sell some more merch or something, because I mean, Double Lift was going in on him about it. Monte Cristo tweeted, "Reggie spent years saying his goal was to win Worlds. TSM is now the last place team in the worst major region, thereby making them the absolute farthest from winning Worlds among teams who paid for a franchise slot." And, like, I mean, G2 Perks was like, "Hey, can I get a discount on that for my vacation house?" Like, all of everyone's just going in, and like, honestly, it's a big meme, but I am a little bit surprised that TSM is like in the position they're in. Maybe it's just my outside perspective of TSM, whereas with Cloud9, I feel like they put out a lot of content about what they're doing, internal team things, like a lot of that stuff, like internal 1v1s and like whatever it is that you can kind of have some conjecture of what they're doing on a team level to like strengthen their players or like improve mindsets or whatever, or like team bond and like make better connections, whatever it is that's going to eventually hopefully come together for better play in game. With TSM, I don't see that same kind of content, and so like I can't tell, is this a rebuilding year? Is this like TSM being like, oh, like we think that we have some really good young talent, let's give them the spring split and develop them, and then like for summer split, like I think they'll be in good form to compete in the LCS? Or like, is this just hey, let's see how these guys do, go team? Like,
Yeah, it feels a lot like that. Like, especially
well, that's,
if you look at last year's summer.
that's what it feels like to me too. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to think negative. Like, Spica still seems to be playing pretty solidly. Hooney's Hooney.
Sure.
And then there's these three young guys that I just don't know. Mostly Kyoto, Shenyi, and Yursan, but I mean, we know Tactical too, and he's a decent 80k. It's weird because I feel like when Cloud9's one of the teams that has done the most of these like rebuilds and restructuring of their team in recent memory, and like
Sure.
bring it. And so I feel like I've always been able to see the inside of the, like, pull back the curtain and kind of see what's going on a little bit more.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't get that with TSM, so I honestly just don't know what's going on with their team, and like what their snags are, or if there's anything that change of perspective on what they're looking to do, or I don't know.
Well, fucking think about it, dude. They lost their franchise quarterback, who was their star mid laner, pulled them out of many losing scenarios, and then they wanted to try and alleviate themselves from the burden of Bjergsen, and like, he can't be the only like reason we're like doing well, right? So they put him in the coach position. They get Power of Evil, a promising mid laner. We know his pedigree. He's a good player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a good stand-in. We get the mind of Bjergsen for the team, and they did okay. It's fine, but factor in also, we know that the type of team environment that Reggie Bro engenders is not one of like, hey, you can come to me with anything. We're a team. I want to do the best for you. Blah blah blah. From what we know about some behind the scenes stuff, like, it doesn't seem like I don't want to use the word fun, but it doesn't seem like a healthy place to try and improve or offer constructive criticism.
Well, and that's why it's weird to me, because like I feel like if that is the environment that you are creating,
yeah,
why bring in a bunch of young players? Like,
well, he may have a bunch of yes men around him because all he does is like, because
young players, they don't, and just from pure lack of experience, do not have the mental fortitude in most cases that a veteran player has. Like, I think that you're better off almost like hiring on a bunch of hard-headed old men that you're like, at least they're not going to crumble under the pressure of this, like,
we
very...
don't know if that's what's happening.
Yeah, no, we don't.
It just seems like there's a lot of elements compounding to create just this team that is just floundering.
Yeah.
Like, what core difference I might be able to pick out, and, I'm not on Jack's Twitter. I don't know what they're doing on a daily basis, but it sounds like if Jack and Cloud9 are able to successfully complete a bunch of different rebuilds and or not be so set back from drastic changes that they make. It sounds like they understand their core values and their core principles, in the sense of they have an understanding of their own systems and trust that they're gonna do their thing. So they bring on people that they trust. They have good infrastructure. They have teams around to help them get at their goals. If you have somebody who is, in general, pretty tyrannical, wants everything their way, they're not going to use all these different tools at their disposal, because they're going to think that they should be able to do and can do everything. Dude, TSM has multiple teams in many, many different esports. You are fucking insane if you think that you are going to be the sole strategist for your League of Legends team, to be so plugged into what's going on with the players, with the coaches, with the other regions, to know what to pipe down. At a certain point, motherfucker, hire somebody. Fucking delegate. Now, here's where I would like to make a connection between League of Legends and Formula One. And this is what this podcast is all about. Talking about the things that are consistent across successful entities, we'll say. All right, last season, 2021, there was an interview with the team principal of McLaren, and they talked about the separation of responsibilities and how McLaren best gets their things done. And the principal from McLaren said, oh no, I let the technical guys handle the technical stuff. I let the marketing people handle the marketing stuff. I'm here for the drivers. I'm here for all my different teams. But he doesn't tell any of these people how to do their job, because he's not an engineer. He's not a technical director. He's not a tire pumper. He's not
a good boss.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm getting at is, like, you have to understand that you don't know what you don't know, and using tools and resources at your disposal will increase your success exponentially, whatever, your zero number was. But I would argue, without having a lot of detail, if a team is able to not crumble and iterate on different ideas and different teams, they're likely doing something right.
Yeah.
They're likely setting up their systems properly so they can plug and play different things, but not break the whole house of cards. That's my take on it.
No, I think that's a good take, because for where TSM is, like, there are things that are still going well for them. Like, I don't want to just be hating on them, but it's tough, like, to see one of the most prominent team. I mean, it's like the same as seeing CLG at the bottom to me. Like, that's a historical NA-LCS like organization. You have a little bit of, like, heart attached to them, just for me at least, from purely having been around them for a decade now, comparatively to some of the other teams. And so seeing them where they're at right now is just pretty disappointing, I think. But they have their good aspects. I mean, even against Team Liquid, they were playing pretty decently in the early game and staying relatively even. There were some times where things, I felt like, could go either way, and then it hit a point and it was all Team Liquid for the last 15 minutes of the game. But, like, there is some potential there and everything. I'm always worried that, especially with the young talent, that it's just gonna not go well. I mean, how many talented players have we seen go to TSM and then get shipped off and perform well afterwards? We've seen it from Svenskeren, we've seen it from Sven, we've seen it from, like, a number of other. Broken Blade is now over in I believe in the LEC, playing pretty solidly. Like, we have We have a number of different players that have gone through. Santorin is now one of the best junglers in the LCS. There's something wrong, and I just don't. It's just weird, and like seeing their team build up and make up of all these younger players, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm missing something or if like I'm seeing it all and it is just like what it is. So
it just is what it is. Like, look at an organization like T1. They've rebuilt so many times, but they stay. They understand what their modus operandi is. They know how they're going to go about it. Like, yes, many times on new T1 rosters, they have a bunch of rookies that no one's ever heard of, but by halfway through the season, they're the only players you can talk about. And there is no way that's just the players. Like, the players don't win the game. It's all of the work that you do outside of the game that leads to those, like, results. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And it does not feel like these teams are doing the prep. Like, and if you are paying attention to the map movements and what is going on in game and not watching for like entertainment value, but like seeing what these teams are actually doing, the ward coverage is abysmal, the objective control is lazy, the rotations are slow, the mechanics are late. Like, I'm not seeing high level play from what should be the youngest, freshest hands in the region.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something going wrong in the practice and the prep where these young, hotshot new rookies, they can't shine if you don't know how you want to play as a team,
right,
or know how you should be playing as a team.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also that is compounded a little bit by the spring season. And so I was watching a little bit of some LS whatever they call it, co-streaming, because he was it was a video that popped up, him and I believe it was Cadril, I think, talking about T1's draft and all, and they were looking at it, and LS felt like, I think they were playing Hanwha Life. I would have to... Yeah, they were playing Hanwha Life, and LS was under the impression after the draft that, like, he was like, I think that Hanwha Life had the better draft, that if they, like, go even until X point in the game, which, like, he's like, I think it's doable for one to go even until 15 minutes or whatever, third Drake or whatever. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I think that they have the better composition to team fight around this Drake and to, like, then whatever it is, like, go forward and win the game from that point on. Gotcha. But Cadril was coming in and, like, discussing that. But one thing that LS said that, like, stuck in my brain was he kept talking about the Kane jungle, or no, sorry, not the Kane, the Viego jungle, and he's like, I highly value Viego insurance, is what he called it, for competitive League of Legends, and the fact, like, the resets, the healing, like, all of those things that Viego gets with his ultimate, like, as it progresses further and further in the game. It's like, I value Viego insurance super highly because competitive League of Legends is really messy right now. And so, and this is talking about Korea, and, like, from my perspective, the region that plays kind of the cleanest, quote unquote, like, kind of games, and everything, especially talking about T1, who did not have the Viego on their side, who plays extremely clean League of Legends and all, I was like, that's a weird thing to think about. Like, if this region that I consider to be just the most standard macro intensive, like kind of clean play, typically, as opposed to like the brawly fighting a lot and trying to get little advantages in little fights that turn into big advantages in big fights like you see in the LPL. I was like, that's a weird thing to think about, that like competitive might just be really messy, that there's not really a standard way to like win or get advantages in game. Like there are ways to do that, but there's not maybe one best way to do it currently with the way the meta is, which I think is a good thing. In general, I think it allows like for a lot of teams to strategize differently and create some really interesting games and matchups. But I think that's also a component of that with these young players and this early season with the changes from the off season and everything. That's like the adaptation and all of that side of it too is not easy, even for top teams in the world potentially.
The word messy is interesting. I want to agree, but I'll say this. We're going to be like the TMG podcast where we just can't stop talking about Jake Paul.
I know. I didn't bring him. It was more about like what he was talking about. It wasn't the fact that it was LS. If I was watching Riv talk or Atlas or whoever, I would think the same thing, or Dom or whatever. I would have the same perspective.
So we'll leave the joke there, and I'll offer some actual analysis with the I should say this. I like the phrase Viego insurance, especially if he's going to refer to the meta as messy. He's right. The resets that you get, the ability to become another champion and gain their tool set is extremely impactful. He's got mobility. He's got crowd control. I think overall he is a very strong champion. And then in a world where, you know, these skirmishes are these like 3v4s with a teleport coming in, a 3v3 where the support joins early, like all of these unpredictable moments, Viego does really good in those skirmish scenarios because of the way he can shroud himself. The resets are huge. So from that perspective, yeah, I do value a Viego a lot, and to a certain degree, I do agree with LS. I think there is an element of sloppiness going on, but this is why I was talking about the vertical jungling and some of that kind of stuff, because it's becoming more refined, right? Like as we pull away from the Hextech Drake update, right? Like we're starting to see some of these teams really hone in on what's right. Like we're seeing Nuke Duck squad over in EU, like they're winning games. If you ask me, that's a problem, Nuke Duck winning games. But it's obvious that there's a multitude of different strategies. Like we're seeing Pyke get picked. We're seeing all sorts of crazy stuff. So sure, I overall agree with LS that yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of strategies that are not as honed in, and yeah, you can get some wins that way. I would agree, Messi's fine.
Definitely. And it's like, it's just the way that things are right now. It's not like it's a good or a bad thing. Like I think things in League of Legends often are given certain connotations and everything. Like people for years and years and years called the LPL a bloodbath, and like and like fucking chaos, whatever, chaos gaming, or well, that's a team, but
chaos strategy.
That like, and all of that stuff, until they won Worlds, and then they were like, oh, yeah.
Then it matters.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of like meme terms that you can throw around, but overall, it's just what's being played and how it's being played.
Yeah. So like Messi is not good or bad. I mean, honestly, I think that can separate good teams in a more efficient manner than it does for other circumstances, because it allows for teams. I think when you're under a difficult circumstance, you're working through like kind of messiness, like you build strengths a lot more quickly because you're having to adapt, and you can kind of separate, this team is like good because they like were able to react to X scenario and all. And so looking at LCK and that matchup with T1 and Hanwha Life, even quote unquote like losing the draft or not maybe picking optimally according to LS, but on the other side, Kadril, or I think it was Kadril, I'm gonna say it was. He was on the side that T1 was going to win that game because he had certain aspects of it too. It was actually a really interesting discussion going back and forth, but T1 was able to go ahead and get the 2-0 clean sweep over Hanwha Life. They looked really solid. Faker has really kind of like taken this Ahri pick and like really popularized it again. It feels really solid and clean when he's playing it in the mid lane and everything. He had picked it in game 2 of that matchup and everything, and looked really, really solid. He was able to dash around, get picks, and do all of the good Ahri things that you normally do. And it's interesting because I feel like I have not seen that pick played much in other regions really at all. A lot of like you're seeing a lot of these other picks that are the similar standard when Ahri is decent, the Orianna, the Rise, some Syndra, things like that. But I feel like the Ahri is kind of coming back into play, and I like the champion. It's fun to watch. It's exciting because there are so many like potential plays that you can make with the movement abilities and things like that. So.
Oh yeah, having the dashes is huge. I know in North America, I think we saw it once or twice over this weekend, and I know it was in the ban slot a decent bit. So I think teams are pretty like keen. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Hecarim that a bunch of these teams are picking up. And what was I talking about last week with Karsa on fucking Hecarim, man? And so yeah, it seems like it seems like some of these teams are now looking across the pond and seeing what's going on, because yeah, we're starting to see some of these international picks crop up, and yeah, Faker's making it look like a clinic on Ahri. She's super exciting to watch. Yeah,
well, and talking about Karsa, the LPL that I did watch was I watched the LNG versus the V5 matchup. Yeah. And they, I mean, Karsa he looked so good playing these kind of I'll call them like disruption champions in that matchup, like the Skarner being able to get the picks and everything in the early game. He was using the Skarner to kind of disengage and like grab people off his carries later on in the game. The Volibear being able to like hop in and just cause kind of mayhem with your ultimate and just charging in and just being a huge body in the middle of everything was really, really like solid. He looked really good in that matchup, and they shut down Tarzan on on the Xin Zhao super heavily, which I find the Xin Zhao to be, it's a really strong pick right now in the jungle. Yeah. It's one of the top ones. But LNG did kind of have a little bit of the salty run back in game 2 and took the L again.
Oh man, they got 2-0. That's so tough.
Yeah, the only swap was they swapped out Lulu support for Nautilus support. The Nautilus was banned in game 1, and then the Lulu was banned in game 2, and so they ran it back and had the same ending to both games. So V5 is looking extremely solid, top of the table right now at 9-1.
9-1.
Yep. So there's still a couple other teams up there. I mean, LNG is 7-3. So after that loss, they're still only 3 losses. RNG and Edward Gaming at 8-3. Weibo Gaming at 9-2, just a half a game back from V5. So still some really, really solid teams at the top of the table in the LPL, and it's going to be fun to watch and see who ends up coming out into the MSI. Hopefully, if we're able to have it again. I would think at this point we're in the clear, but you never know. To see which team's going to come out and be playing at MSI, I think that whoever comes out of the LPL, and at this point it looks like most likely T1 out of the LCK, I think that will be very exciting to watch going into that tournament. So
yeah, a lot to look forward to, and yeah, we're seeing, like we were talking about earlier, we're seeing a bunch of different play styles, and some teams really kind of separating themselves at the top of the table here. So I think we'll have some pretty good storylines to talk about once we get closer to MSI time.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you all want us to talk about in the League of Legends realm, feel free to post that in the comments. And all, we would love to dive in onto some topics that might interest you and that maybe we have knowledge on, maybe we don't, and we have to look into it and do a little bit of research and figure it out. But yeah, if there's any League of Legends things that y'all want to hear about, see, let us know. Hit us up in the comments. But before we move along, did you have any other league notes before we hop on over to Magic?
No, I don't think so. I think we hit all the big points, and not too much Magic here. But the one thing I did want to talk about was the awareness of my own plays and thinking, not always thinking that they had it anyway, or I'm not sure I would have been able to, whatever. Because thinking about, so I took game 1 and that was all right. But for game 1, I think the main takeaway is having some amount of board wipes, some amount of sweepers to just get rid of everybody's creatures. It's super useful because a lot of times that's what really clogs up a game. It's just a bunch of random things just still on the board. So in game 1, I had a one-sided board wipe where I was able to keep my 2 big things alive and then kill everything else. So that was a big advantage. That led to the W. But what I really want to talk about is game 2, where I was in a position. It was down to me and the player across from me, and I was in a situation where I was trying to swing and swing out with all of my creatures and kill him there because he would have been able to kill me on the crackback. I was taking a bunch of damage casting my spell, so I really only had 1 turn's worth of gas to try and push through. I'd taken out the other players and he was the last one, and I had the big mistake was I moved to my combat phase without spending all of my mana. I I probably had like 7 or 8 mana open and a number of tokens. They're called clue tokens. You can pay 2 mana to draw a card. So I had a bunch of mana open and like 3 cards worth of tokens on the battlefield. So what I should have done was spend all of that mana, try and draw more cards, because I was pumping my creatures with an enchantment called Jeskai Ascendancy, where every time you cast a non-creature spell, your creatures get a +1/+1. So I was trying to like grow them by casting things, and I missed out on an opportunity. I should have used all my mana. I should have drawn all my cards to see if there was like some instant speed thing or whatever that I could just pump them up like 1 or 2 more times, and I would have had the damage to swing through. I was maybe a bit hasty, like, you know, everyone's packing up and whatever. But I think in those moments, I should really just slow down, look at my board, and say, like, oh, yeah, I have some more things to do here.
Yeah, well, in that case, like, you can pop 2 mana and your tokens to get, because it's what, 2 mana per card draw?
Yep.
So pop 2 mana, if you have 6 mana on the field, like, you can pull 1 card and, like, hey, maybe if it's a 4 mana creature, you slap another one down, or like, but you can do this one at a time, correct? You don't have to like, okay, so you don't have to be like, I'm paying 6 mana and drawing 3 cards. You can do like, I'm paying 2, drawing 1, I'm paying 2, drawing 1, and do it that way.
Yeah, and it would have just been nice, like, to find like a little mana rock or just like a really cheap spell that pumps them, but allows me to like still draw another or whatever. Shout out
that's
to
good to
Brandon
catch
in
that
game
though.
2.
Yeah, it's good to like recognize those things. I think it's something that I've heard you talk about multiple times in terms of like rushing yourself. I think it's like your mindset of like, we're here to have fun. Like, I'm not trying to hold anyone up, or like there have been multiple times where you've mentioned like, oh, like I probably could have like thought through this a little bit more, but like people were trying to get out of here and this and that, and so I just did like it's good that you're picking up on that, because then in future instances, I think it will come to your like the forefront of your mind that you're like,
right,
what's 30 extra seconds? Let me take my time thinking
and
this
that's what
through.
it would be,
like
just 30 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, because like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, I mean, when I see people driving on the highway and acting like maniacs and everything, and then I end up at the stoplight next to them, I'm like, what's the deal, man? Did rushing all the way up and getting like 1 car ahead of me like save you that much time? We're both at the same red light, so same kind of thing. Like, yeah, people are packing up, getting ready, but like, is 30 more seconds really gonna hurt if you hang on? And so,
that's a very good observation. I think maybe one more time I'll have to notice it, and then it'll become part of my like, hey, shut the fuck up, I'm doing my thing.
Well, no, but this time each time it has sounded slightly different. Like, you are like, the first time you're like, oh, like, I kind of was just, people were trying to go, Ian had work, whatever. I was just rushing through to like play my cards and like just put out everything all at once and whatever. This time you're like, well, it was not just like, oh, I could have done something differently. It's like, this is what I could have done differently. Like, there's a specific thing that you're pinpointing that you are like, oh, if I had taken a little more time, I could have done this. And not just, oh, if I took more time, like, there's probably something I could have done differently.
Oh,
and so,
gotcha.
so like, there's progression. There's like progression on like seeing like what you could have done differently, and I think that is just progress in general on like what you're seeing and conceptualizing with the game and like with your play and everything. So it's definitely it's a big step in the right direction and everything. So
That's very cool.
Whether I mean, I'm guessing you didn't quite see it as the same
No,
way.
I didn't.
So, but that's a big difference from when I remember the first time you mentioning that kind of scenario to this one. There's been a shift in your perspective on it and all. So
Interesting. Well, yeah, it's yeah, I just think that's a crucial step of just like trying to examine your mistakes, see if there's something better that you could do. But I don't want to get too in the weeds about cardboard, because overall I want to pick your brain about the flavor of the week here.
All
And
right.
one of the albums we were listening to, because I have some thoughts and I would really love to know yours. So if you don't mind, can we do the flavor of the week?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to go first, or me, or what are you thinking?
Let me let me start, and then we can tie in with the music.
Cool.
I'll tie into yours, and so then you start with music and I'll end with music.
Sounds good.
right.
Because, well,
Go
for
ahead.
I was just gonna say I really have not gotten to listen to it yet, so I want to hear your perspective. I know, but I do want to hear your thoughts and perspectives. So
I won't spoil anything.
I spoil away.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for the album. Okay, cool. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'll run through it real quick. So my visual medium, and this is for anybody wanting to get a sense of League of Legends, that is in modern League of Legends. Samsung White versus Samsung Blue, 2014 Worlds semifinals. I was talking to Sarah about it, and after the conversation, I was like, I don't know if I got all those details right. So I went back to like literally fact check myself, and I ended up like watching the whole series and like really enjoying
Good
it.
series.
Dude, it was sweet, but I actually found out like I misremembered a bunch of stuff. I
Was
thought
that best
went
of
to 5
3?
games. No, it was a best of 5, but
Okay.
they won in 3 games. And only the first 2 were competitive, and White smashed them in the 3rd game. It was over in like 12 minutes. Dude, there are so many things that I could talk about, but overall, if you want to see like true fast fingers, watch Imp during that whole series. The things he was flashing, like he was predict flashing so fast, but like still like in the fight, he wasn't flashing away. He was just flashing, still being able to do damage. Like, this was a really fun series to go back and rewatch. Not like both from an analytical perspective to see like, oh, that's sick. Like, oh, that's how they found he got the, like, that stuff is all really cool. And then just from like just pure, just fun. You have the crowd yelling. It's Riv, Jat, and Deficio casting it. So like, dude, it's just knowledge after knowledge after knowledge. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, they love doing this, so this is like, it was just high level overall. So
That's
great
awesome.
series to go back and watch. Samsung White versus Samsung Blue. My food, classic Chilean tortilla chips. Sarah makes a banging chili. I just put it on the chips. I throw that bitch in the microwave. I love the way tortilla chips get that like wet, but they've still got a crunch. It's like very particular to the nacho. So I love that. But here's the coup de grace. Donda 2 from Kanye West came out recently, and I have some thoughts.
Okay.
These thoughts, I'm going to start with lyrics from another song. I work so much, my greatest fear is I'ma die alone. Diamonds in my chain, yeah, that's a milestone. Who wrote those words?
For whatever reason, I feel like the diamonds in my
Work so much, my greatest fear is I'ma die alone. Work so much, diamonds in my chain, yeah, that's a milestone. Hey, I love it.
that's Big Sean, right?
No, it's Logic.
Ah, shit. No.
Under Pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
I knew I recognized it, and I knew it was someone that I listened to back when, like, a lot more when I lived in Virginia. Because I can remember jamming to, I know exactly, like, I remember specific places that I was, like, in my car
Oh, hell yeah.
listening to that. I was like,
So-
but they were both, Logic and Big Sean were both, like, at the same time. I listened
Okay.
to a lot of both of them.
Nice. All right. So, Under Pressure, he has that sample.
Oh, he didn't just he sampled it. Or did he?
Hold on.
All right.
So Logic in the song Under Pressure, he uses a sample from Eazy-E called the song's called Easy Does It, and right in the beginning of the song, he has a female vocalist saying, he once was a thug from around the way. He once was a thug, and Under Pressure, Logic samples that to make the beat for the song. This is many, many years ago, okay? Where and I think it's an original take. It's a great sample. It sounds really good. Now let's fast forward to 2022, Donda 2. Kanye West puts on this live performance, and one of the songs, it's called Easy with The Game. And guess what song he samples? Easy Does It by Eazy-E. Once was a thug from around the way. And it's the same fucking thing. It's the exact same idea of juxtaposing the words easy in the beat, and then having the whole tone of the song be like, look how much struggle I've had to go through. It's the exact same juxtaposition. So why am I talking about Logic, a sample, who the fuck is Eazy-E, what's Under Pressure, who's Kanye West? All of this matters because up until Donda 2, I would have told you that Kanye West was the most original. Every time he drops an album, it blows my mind. It's like something I've never heard of. But when I heard that sample, I think my heart was broken a little bit. Because somebody did that already, bro. And I know there's a culture of reuse and paying homage and let me spin this beat and do it my own. Fuck, I was talking about No Ceilings with Lil Wayne and saying like, oh, I love how he like jumps. Oh, he like, but
Kanye, he's not paying homage to Logic.
No, he's not. Exactly. He just thought he was creating something new and original, but he didn't at all. I
mean, so
it's the same concept, same.
No. I'm gonna say like.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is the potential for it's like fucking fish evolved and fish have fins, and then certain other amphibians evolved separately and they ended up with fins too. Like it's like there's the potential for two people to come to the same conclusion or the same thought process. Every one of us has told the same joke that someone else told first, that we felt like it popped into our brain on our own, but someone else has said it out there. I think the more surprising thing for me in this aspect is that Kanye didn't realize it, or no one in Kanye's like camp realized it.
Or if they did, they didn't care.
Yeah,
that's worse.
Because it's not like Logic, some SoundCloud underground rapper. Like he was chart topping for a few years. He's put out a lot of really good and prominent and popular projects. So like that does surprise me and is a little disappointing.
And I'm not mad at who he. I'll say it. I'm not mad who he bit from. I was sad that here was a moment where an artist that has surprised me every other time, it fell so flat, because every other time he's given me something that I've never heard before.
Oh, some of the samples on like The Life of Pablo and things like that. I'm like, where did you even get this from? This is from a Christmas song from 1923, like that was on a phonograph. Like, what the fuck?
That's the level of outside the box that you come to expect from Kanye. So then you get to this. These aren't my words. When you get to this phoned in like divorce, like a company album, it really like speaks to a like this is not his best project, is what I'm trying to say.
And I'll check it out, and I'm sure that I'll have similar opinions as you on it, especially with the amount of like Logic, and like we've talked about Logic for years. You were the one who put me on to him with Under Pressure and everything. So I'm sure I'll have a similar aspect or thought process. That being said, there are plenty of artists that have put out albums that have kind of flopped a little bit.
Sure.
And so no. It is surprising when it's Kanye, because even when he put out Christ is Lord or Jesus is Lord or whatever that the gospel album name is, because I'm blanking, but like whether that genre of music is your style or you're gonna listen to it, for me it's not. I like Kanye a lot as an artist. I listen to a ton of his stuff. The Life of Pablo is one of my favorite albums. I'm pretty sure it was in my top 10 when we talked about our albums. And like I love his music. That album was not my style, but it wasn't a flop. And like so I think like from seeing Kanye all these years and like a decade and a half or 2 decades, whatever now it is, of him making music, and for this to be like the first album that it sounds like I'm gonna be a little disappointed in, is, I think that's where it like surprises you. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh yeah, everyone fucks up. Like, he was going through a lot. He's dealing, whatever the case may be. It's a flop either way, if that's what you end up looking at it as. But it's just weird coming from him, because I feel like he hasn't done it before.
Yeah, and not
I can't think of an album of his I can't think of an album of his that people like listen to or like, oh, that's not it, man.
So yeah, it was definitely like, at first listen through, there was a lot of things that I really enjoyed, but there are just some, like, a bunch of just like meh moments. I should speak on one of the highlights, the City, I think it's called City of Gods, with Fivio Foreign and Alicia Keys. That's a fucking track. Like, that's fucking really good. So there are some really good things that he does on the album, but there are some moments that feel phoned in, or maybe just a little unaware, that lead to it feeling like just a bunch of Donda, like, cutting room floor, like they would have been on like the C side of Donda. And then, what a weird thing, like, you made it so much about your mother and the love of that. Like, why name this Donda 2 when, like, it's all about Kim? It's all about Kim. It's like, it feels disingenuous and whatever. So overall, I don't think the strongest release from Kanye, although there are many, 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 many strong moments on the thing. It's just not fucking Pablo. Fuck him for not making another Pablo.
Yeah, because I really like that album, and I'd love to have another one that I can jam to for months on end without, like, on repeat and not get tired of. There's not too many albums that you come across that you can blast for that long and, like, not be sick of it.
No, I agree. That was a banger. But like Jay-Z said, he's like, people want to listen to my old shit, buy my old albums. It's basically saying, like, I'm just going to make new shit. But I've been taking up this mic for way too long. Give me your flavor of the week, dude.
Yeah, no worries. I will be checking out Donda 2 this week, just so I want to have some perspective. I just want to have some perspective on it and everything, whether I like it or not, we'll see. But for my flavor of the week, my food, down in Nashville, I got a hot chicken sandwich. That is a poppin' thing down there. We found like a nice little... nothing's a hole in the wall down there, because everything is like super populated and all, but kind of just like a more casual diner type vibe, and got a Nashville hot chicken sandwich for lunch, and it was awesome. I'm a big proponent of adding cheese to spicy chicken sandwiches, whether it's hot chicken, spicy chicken, whatever it is. I don't know, maybe that's weird, but I do it at Chick-fil-A, I do it at Popeyes, I do it at fucking Wendy's, I do it wherever. So I got a nice slice of good old American cheese slapped on that thing, and it was very good. Had a lot of good food down there, but that was the one standout for me. For my music, I really enjoyed, and it was a kind of interesting thing thinking about, but I enjoyed all the country music. I heard the song Tennessee Whiskey probably 18 times in a 2-day span, which is what it is. Like, I would like to hear a little bit more variety.
What, the fucking Chris Stapleton song?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so slow, man.
Yeah, I heard it so many times, but
I love that.
I mean, like I said, I would like to have enjoyed more variety, but the different artists that we got to listen to and all down there, like in terms of the different like local bands and everything, like when you're in Nashville, every bar has live music all the time, and all the bands are good. Like, I was very impressed by the energy, the talent, and like from all these just unknown people that are out there doing their thing and like trying to make it and having a blast. Like, the bands that I enjoyed the most were the ones that, like, because everyone's good there, but there were bands that the singers or the guitarists or whatever just had more energy, more interaction. Like, we had one bar we were at that the lead singer like came around and was like taking requests in the crowd and everything, and like, yeah, that's a money making thing too. They're like asking for tips along with requesting a song, whatever. But still, they're like going around through. The guy stopped at her table. Colleen asked for a couple different songs. He's like, hey, just to be honest, I've been playing a bunch of songs all morning that I don't know. I didn't even realize that he was playing songs that he'd never played before and singing along to them and everything. He's like, here's my wheelhouse. Like, do you mind picking something from like this range? And she's like, oh, right. Like, we found something that was solid and all. But like, they're so talented. Like, this guy was singing songs we were there for half an hour listening to this guy sing and play songs, and like, nice. He's like, none of them, basically, he was like, I've never sang that song before, and I would have never known.
Right.
So it was
sweet.
Yeah, it was cool seeing like all these talented individuals and seeing like the differences, like in terms of energy, interaction, different things like that, and like styles and all, but also them all being like really, really solid. So that was a lot of fun. So that is my music for this week. And then my visual medium, you've watched it. I have now watched it. I watched James Bond, No Time to Die.
Nice. What'd you think?
I really enjoyed it. Colleen had her moments of interjection as she's watching Luca on the airplane and I'm watching James Bond, because she looks over and goes, and I'm like intently watching, like I'm into it. I really like the James Bond movies, so I very much enjoyed it. I liked that it had its differences from previous Bond movies, and everything, and I appreciated that as well, with it being kind of a finale to this section of the James Bond movies. But then I get my interjections that I'm like watching. I got my earbuds in. I just hear from my left, just, he could be her granddad, talking about James Bond and the female protagonist in the movie. Sure. And I'm like, dad, maybe, not granddad, but like, stop it. I'm trying to pay attention. And so I got a chuckle, but no, overall the movie I thought was really well done. I have noticed that over the years I've gotten better at picking up certain things that I like cinematically, and a lot of the especially early on in the movie, a lot of the camera angles, or not angles, like the framing of things, I've noticed a lot more, and you would think I would have noticed it sooner in James Bond movies, because in the intro, like, little scene, it's always this little dot dodging around and framing different things. You'd think I'd pick up on it before now, but some of the scenes where, like, they're in the like hotel room at the beginning in Italy or wherever they are, and he walks out on the balcony, and it's just this framed, like, he's just like the perfect center. Everything's extremely symmetrical, like, all of that. It looked so nice, and there are so many moments like that throughout the film that are, the way they're shot is just aesthetically pleasing, along with me also just enjoying the content of the film and the style and everything. I like the filmography, or whatever you want to call it, cinematography, of the film, and everything, the bibliography, the biblioteca, it all really was, I enjoyed it a lot, and, like, I thought it was very well done to be Daniel Craig's final Bond movie. So definitely a thumbs up from me on this end for that.
Very cool. Yeah, I do enjoy a button, and yeah, it's cool how they wrapped up that storyline, and now they can, do whatever they want, and, free up actors to do other projects and whatever. But yeah, I thought it was just a cool end. I'm glad you enjoyed it too.
Definitely. So that is my flavor of the week. And that brings us to the end of the episode. But as Justin said at the beginning, interact with us, reach out on Twitter, on YouTube, hit us up in our Discord. If you want to know, hit us up in YouTube. We'll send you the link. But we appreciate everyone listening, being a part of this and everything. So thank you all. But Justin, I'll let you wrap things up.
Just want to throw a couple things to the listeners here. We release new episodes every Thursday. Time varies, but every Thursday you get a new hot and fresh, tall and short of it. You can find us on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you like. Give us your flavor of the week. But other than that, this has been a beautiful time talking. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Tall and Short of It podcast. Peace out.
Later.